Hey everybody, it's Jason McLaren with the Leadership Loading Podcast, and today we're talking about leadership and professional development and leadership development because my guest today is Ron Reich. He's a professional with 28 years of experience in training, design, development, and facilitation with an extensive background in leadership and management development. Like I said, he's got 28 years of experience with several different companies and organizations, and so we'll talk a little bit about that and how you can develop your leadership going forward. So Ron, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jason. Good to be here.
Yeah, so like I said, big background. Can you just sum it up a little bit for the listeners on how you got on the show and why you're a leader in this field?
Yeah, as you had said, Jason, I have 28 years of experience in leadership, management development, executive coaching. And it started out actually all those years ago. I did a lot of sales training. And as the sales training started to ensue, or I started to get deeper into it, one of the things I realized was that coaching was such a big part of helping the sales reps that I was indeed training and helping. And it just kind of evolved from there. I got involved in a leadership program with Toshiba when I was working there doing the sales training. And like I said, it just kind of evolved. And I continued just reading voraciously, got into a lot more management and leadership training at some pharmaceuticals where I've worked. 17 years ago, I started my own business, and it has been an incredible ride, just an incredible ride. I feel so incredibly happy and so incredibly blessed that I have found my calling and just absolutely love what I do.
Definitely, and I think you're probably the most active on LinkedIn. You and I share some common posting techniques. Everybody I talk to, I'm in some leadership classes Lean Six Sigma class right now, and the guy that runs the class is like, man, Jason's a posting fool on there. So one of your latest ones was about 3 tips for leadership and points that you can take. Can you walk us through those?
Sure. The 3 tips for leaders. Number one of the best tips that I can share with anybody who is a leader, wants to be a leader, get to know yourself extraordinarily well. It was interesting because I'm a New York Giants season ticket holder, and a number of years ago during a tailgate, one of the core people that we go to the games with, he's a chief financial officer for a technology company in Manhattan, came up to me, goes, Ron, throw me the one tip. Just throw me the one tip that could make me the best leader possible. I thought about it and ultimately just said to him, Peter, get to know yourself really, really well. Get to know who you are, what your strengths are, what your limitations are, what triggers you at work. Realize that you need to be humble enough to ask for help when it's necessary. Apologize when you're wrong. Second tip would be really build very strong relationships with everybody with whom you work. And for me, building strong relationships, get to know people personally, professionally, every which way. And again, it just links back. The better you know people, the more effectively you will work with them. And that's a proven fact. Tip number 3, just learn to listen. Just learn to listen. So many people, I'm a big believer in Stephen Covey's work, and I'm fortunate enough to be certified to teach the 7 habits. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. And when you're listening to people, so often we tend to listen with the intent to reply rather than the intent to understand. Just listen, listen, listen. What's the message you're trying to send me, Jason? What's the message? And then translate what you're hearing. When you listen deeply, again, research shows the colleague or anybody with whom you're speaking is going to share, or anybody to whom you're listening is going to share that much more information with you. So those would be 3 quick tips.
Great. And I like your listening with intent and not just to reply. And that's probably one of my weaknesses is my brain is so fast and people will start giving me this long drawn out story on something that needs to be done, and I'm already in my head like, okay, this is how we can fix that. This is how we can fix that. And then as soon as they're done, I'm like, okay, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, well, we tried that, but this, or something like that. And so I think the listening with intent on what they're actually getting to, because as myself, as a leader, I think a lot of us have followers that are usually, and I tell my guys this too, I say, you guys know more than I do. You're in the field every day doing this. And so when you come to me, I'm assuming they've already ran out of options. And sometimes I overestimate that, and we kind of go back and forth. But anyway, that kind of goes back to just getting back to the basics of leadership, and then just showing that not everybody, no matter what your leadership level is, has it all figured out all the time.
That's right. That's right. Well, I mean, and you know what? Another tip that I can even add based on what you're just saying right there, Jason, I had said earlier, I'm a voracious reader. One of the best books I've read, and it was just recently, is called Leadership is Language, written by David Marquet. And one of the things he says in that book, and I love it, is just so simple. Let the doers do. Let the doers do. They're the ones who know what's going on in the field, what's going on in the office, whatever it might be. Let them do it. As the leader, you don't need to have all the answers. My job as a leader is just to be there for them, support them, give them the vision. I'll tell you what I need done. You go ahead and do it. You know more than I do.
Definitely. And of course, being a podcast host, I'm always trying to think, how am I going to reply when the person stops talking? So, so I kind of have to balance both, depending on what I'm talking about. So with that, like we were just talking about our teams, we know our teams are capable, and there's always these varying leadership skills and situational leadership. If you practice that,
Yes.
some people need different elements and different focuses.
Yes.
What are some other activities we can do to develop people and make them a true leader, and get some of that off our plate?
Well, I think a lot of it is too, Jason. Leaders need to find out, and actually, let me take that back. Leaders and their colleagues need to determine what their interests are. In other words, if I have direct reports, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What is it you want to do next? Do you want to move up the ladder? Do you want to move into a managerial position? Do you want to move into a leadership position? If that's the case, absolutely. Then there are assignments I'm going to give you that will take, that correspond to that. Are you more interested in just just growing laterally? Are you interested in perhaps moving into other positions just within the organization? And that all goes to having conversations with people, talking to them again about what are you interested in? What are your passions at work? What are you hoping to be able to do? The book that I'm reading right now actually corresponds to this beautifully. It's called Promotions Are So Yesterday. And it's written by a woman named Julie Giulioni. And it has some wonderful tools in there, helping your colleagues to learn what their interests would be, and of course, helping you so that you can guide them appropriately.
Definitely. I think I've heard you, or you probably heard it too, readers are leaders. And unfortunately, I'm not a good reader. I need to get better at it. But I think with all my studies right now and work, I just always put it on the back burner. But I know that like you said, you're an avid reader, and you had like some top 5 books on leadership. So what are some of those that you would suggest?
Let's see. Actually, one of the best ones you just mentioned, situational leadership. I read one of the best books I can recommend is called Leading at a Higher Level, written by Ken Blanchard, one of the founders, designers of situational leadership. One of the reasons I like it so much is that he talks about when it's necessary for leaders to direct people, when it's necessary and appropriate to coach them, support them, how to, when you should be delegating, and really everything that goes along with that. He talks about how to do this with individuals. He also talks about using these styles with teams. That is an excellent book, just excellent.
You had one that was 4 stages of psychological safety. I think that was most interesting to me. I'm a safety professional by trade, and now I'm in the corporate world, but I think that's kind of one that was interesting to me, the 4 stages of psychological safety.
Yeah. The 4 stages of psychological safety also absolutely critical. And I did to walk through the 4 stages that Tim Clark talks about. Number 1, people at work need to feel included. And what we mean by that is, again, going back to the one tip I shared earlier, people have a deep need to connect with each other. They want to know each other. And at work, it's important that we include people in the things we do. And this is just as human beings. Jason, we're going to Starbucks for coffee. Would you like to join us? Jason, we're going to lunch, whatever it might be, just the informal getting to know you. The second level is called learning. And this ties in again with what we've been talking about. People at work need to feel safe, that they can learn, that they can grow, that they can make mistakes, that they can ask questions and ask for clarification without being fearful, without, I'm gonna get my head torn off, people are gonna make fun of me, whatever it might be. And when I feel safe that I can learn, I am going to learn. And obviously that leads us to the third level, which is contribute. Then I am going to be able to contribute more to the organization. And once you, my boss, and once my other coworkers see, hey, you know what? Yeah, Ron is capable. Ron knows what he's doing and he's contributing. The relationships deepen that much more. And then the fourth level is called challenge. And now I need to feel safe going to you, my boss, and quote unquote, appropriately challenging you. I'm not sure this is the right direction to go, Jason. I'm not sure we were ready to launch the product. And it's the same thing with colleagues, challenging each other. And when those 4 levels are in place, man, there's no stopping teams, except if they're not in place, there are some real issues because people aren't bringing the truth to the table, and there's a lot of hidden lurking uncertainty, if you will.
Definitely, I think all that kind of rolls into celebrating your team and celebrating achieving goals and metrics and performance indicators. I always harp on my team about, hey, this is our KPIs for the year. This is what we need to get done for the year or the quarter, whatever it is. So that kind of leans into the next book, is The Best Team Wins. So let's talk about that a little bit and how we can use those traits to make our team better.
Yeah, I love that, Jay. I love the book, Jason, because number 1, he does talk about the importance of recognition in the workplace, which is absolutely key. Equally as important for me, what Adrian and Elton are talking about, or Chester are talking about there, it's all about the different generations in the workplace, what they're looking for, what's important to each one of them. And they also talk about the adjustments and the flexibility that's necessary for each of the generations so that everyone can indeed work together. It's well written, really good examples there. I love it. It's a great book.
Definitely, and I think making sure our teams know when they win is another important aspect, because if you're just giving the orders and you're just giving them commands or whatever, they kind of get burned out because they're like, well, why do we have to do this? And so I think celebrating those wins and celebrating when they accomplish a goal is important, but also knowing which teams want that, because not everybody, depending on the generation, they don't want to always be awarded, especially either in public or private, depending on, some people would rather get their certificate in the office by themselves. And other ones want to be up on the stage in front of everybody so they can show it off.
I did I did a 2-day leadership class a number of years ago in Dallas. Long story short, at the start of this leadership class, the morning of day one, we play a very elaborate game. And I need an assistant in order to help me to facilitate the game effectively. The one time I went out there, the person who always assisted me was out sick. So I taught someone on the fly how to be my assistant. She did a fabulous job. The game is over. We've compiled the results. We're ready to debrief. And I was talking to her and I was like, I'd like to bring you, let me bring you in front of the class. We'll give you a standing ovation for what you did. She looked at me and she said, I would be mortified. Don't do it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm glad I said something because I wasn't going to. I was just going to bring you out here. And again, the point for me is simply, man, you need to talk to people and find out what's important to them, what's going to work, because what I think is going to work could end up being incredibly detrimental.
Definitely. And once again, back to my teams, I have people that don't want to get in front of everybody. Unfortunately, we have a monthly meeting and we just go down the roster on, okay, you're going to give a safety moment this day. And then another person gives we call it a reflection and then a safety moment. And unfortunately, we kind of force them into that. But with our department, we really need to be out in front of people and able to communicate effectively. So it kind of gets them out of their comfort zone a little bit in a way that, we're in a community of our peers and our coworkers, and you're not, in front of a bunch of strangers you don't know. So it helps them that way, but also helps us as a department get along with each other and see some things that everyone's working with.
Sure.
All right. So Ron, what would be your 1-minute leadership tip if you had to give somebody a quick tip? What would it be?
Jason, I think I'm going to circle back to what we were talking about right off the bat. I think the most important thing anybody can do, whether you are a formal leader and have a title, or whether you are, just an individual contributor, everybody is a leader. The most important thing anybody can do is to get to know himself or herself extraordinarily well. Learn about what are my strengths? What are my limitations? I need to be humble enough to ask for help when it's necessary. I also need to be confident enough to tell people, hey, I'm good at this. I'll help you with it, or I can take care of this in the given project. And again, some of the tools available, if people are unclear about, I'm not sure what my strengths are, what my limitations are. Personality assessments are out there. Coaching is out there. I mean, it's not hard to find these things out. And like I said, the better you know yourself, the more effective you're going to be, no matter what it is you do.
Definitely. And if we wanted to reach out to you and get some advice or coaching tips, or maybe book you for coaching, how'd they do that?
Jason, probably the best way to do it would be through my LinkedIn profile. Very simply, it is Ron Reich, RLB, Training and Development. And I welcome anyone to visit the page. I'll be glad to respond to any messages people leave and just have a conversation. And I love doing that. And I promise anybody that does contact me, or that we will indeed have a conversation. It's not going to be a sales pitch. It's not going to be, oh, you need me, whatever it might be. We'll just talk about things and see where it goes.
Definitely. Those are the best conversations because, I get pitched all the time for things. So I prefer the ones that are more conversational. And if it works out, works out. If not, we'll say, hey, there's no mutual benefit or anything. And we can go to our next meeting.
That's right.
All right, Ron, well, thank you for coming on the show today.
Jason, it's been my pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership Inspired.